Hey everyone, my name's Luca. I'm a sophomore from Team 20 to 20 Blue Twilight. Obviously, I am a safety captain on my team. I'm obviously very involved with safety, but I'm also very involved with MTR, which is like the business side of our team.
And hi, I'm Sarah. I'm the other safety captain, and besides safety, I do mechanical.
So today we're going to be talking about what is COVID-19, how does it spread, what are some general things that you can implement into your own safety plans, and what are your student responsibilities, team responsibilities, things they're going to need to take care of, and then we'll also be addressing how mental health can be affected during the pandemic.
So, what is COVID? COVID-19 is from the coronavirus's virus family. It's in the same virus family as the common cold, and just like the cold, it affects your breathing, but it's just more severe. These are the symptom comparisons between COVID-19 and other illnesses like the flu, the cold, and allergies. It's really easy to get different symptoms mixed up, so you want to be aware about what illness you have.
So how can be COVID-19 spread? It's spread from person to person between close contact and through respiratory droplets that come out when someone sneezes or coughs or something like that. So these droplets can be shown through this diagram. Granted, in this diagram, these people aren't wearing masks. So obviously the results would be different if they were. But as you can see, these droplets can go up to 10 meters wide. So this really shows everyone that the 6 foot distance is really just the minimum when thinking about how safe it is. Do you know anyone who has like COVID-19? So just answer in the chat. It's a yes or no question. If we could like refrain from using names, that'd be great because I don't know. It's just less drama if someone doesn't name them. But it's just a simple yes or no question. Do you know anyone who has had COVID-19? Cool. Looks like the results are coming in. Some people are saying yes, some people are saying no. Well, the key thing that we kind of want to address to some during this is that as of today, over 230 people in the US alone have died from COVID-19, that around 1,000 a day. And the really weird part is when we were making this presentation, we had to like put a bigger number than was already in order to make it so it was an accurate number by the time we would actually be presenting. So the main thing that we want to address in this is that it is very serious, even though you might not be seeing anyone personally who's been catching it. Many people are. So just remember that when we go through this presentation.
So, what are some things we can do to stop the spread of COVID-19? Also, answer this in chat. Like, what have your teams been doing? What have you been doing personally? Wear mask, yeah.
I'll give you guys a couple more minutes to write this down.
And so these are the three W's, things that you should always make sure that you're doing. Wear a mask, wash your hands, and watch your distance. This is just an easy way to remember that you should be doing this. And in contrast, you want to avoid the three C's: crowded places, close contact settings, and confined or enclosed spaces. Some examples of these would be school hallways, elevators, and restaurants, especially restaurants because you're there with a crowded group of people for a long time and you have to remove your mask in order to eat.
So general meeting practices. So host, can we like have the poll for like has your team started meeting? So what has your team started meeting? What are some things now we're going to be talking about more of what are some things that are going on and what you'll be doing when you are doing your meetings. So, like, what are some just general things that you should have in your mitigation plan at all times and things like that. So it looks like a bunch of you guys are doing hybrid and some of you guys aren't doing meetings. Our school, our team personally has been doing a hybrid of virtual and in-person teams. So we have a virtual team meeting on Tuesdays, and on Thursdays we have insight meetings along with a mix of people who are going into other teams. So those are the results, as you can see there. So off the bat, let's just start off with how virtual meetings are literally the safest thing that you can do when you're doing a team. There's literally no chance that you're going to catch coronavirus. There's nothing at risk when you're doing a virtual meeting. That being said, if you do want to do an in-person meeting, you should always consult your school admin first, because your school administration is the thing that's going to be mainly in charge of whether or not you're going to be competing in the team. On top of that, they're also going to have a different idea of what's safe versus what your team might have an idea of. On top of that, you should also be referencing to other places, like we go to the MDH. I think that's the Minnesota Department of Health, and the CDC, Center of Disease Control. So we reference to those sites to have those recommendations, and we also put those into our mitigation plans. On top of that, you obviously need to be wearing a mask, you need to be practicing social distancing, you need to have a limited number of people on site, and you need to have a way to determine if anyone is sick or send them home. So an example of this could just be a simple poster by an entrance or filled with a list of questions that students can just go through in their head to see if they match the criteria to be healthy. If not, then they'll have to go home, but if they do, then they can proceed into the meeting as normal. Also, record attendance. We'll get to this into this a lot more in detail later, but it is very important to keep attendance because it helps with contact tracing.
And these are masks that work and masks that don't work. So the CDC recommends that you wear a mask, and this is mostly to protect other people. So if no one wears a mask, then everyone is exposed to coronavirus. But if everyone wears a mask, then you have the least possible chance that someone can catch corona. And these are 3 types of masks. Good ones are 2 layers made of cloth. The better ones are the surgical ones. Those are usually disposable. And the best ones, we save those for first line responders and medical professional. And these are the ineffective masks. So of course you want to remember to cover both your mouth and your nose, but you don't want to wear bandanas or neck gaiters because those are usually really thin and just don't work because they're too thin. You also don't want to wear valved masks because those let air particles go in and out of your mask, and that just makes it so you can transmit corona to others. And this is how you wear a mask properly. So you want to remember to cover both your mouth and your nose. And if you touch the mask, which you really don't want to, you remember to wash your hands immediately. And of course, don't wear bandanas, gaiters, or the mask with belts. And this is how you remove a mask properly. So we're assuming that all around you is corona, so you don't want to get the virus from your mask onto your hands. So you want to remove it by the ear loops and don't touch the mask, then fold it together from the outside. And after you do that, you want to remember to wash your hands and don't touch your nose, mouth, or eyes. Remember that after you take off your mask to either wash the mask, or if it's a disposable mask, to throw it away.
So face shields and safety glasses. So these are very important. They're coming up more. So They're at the core of the CDC's recommendations for protecting against COVID-19, and the next slide will explain more of why. But these shields provide adequate protection from COVID-19 when they aren't meant to be used alone. They're meant to be used with a mask only to protect your face and eyes. Meant to be acting as an extra layer of protection. So we'll get more into like how they can fit you and things like that. But just don't wear them only and think that they're gonna work instead of a mask because they aren't a replacement for a mask, they're an addition to a mask. So these are more of how to get the most from a face shield. So you should always be wearing a face shield with a mask like we said before, but you need to make sure that your face shield fits properly. A way to do this is by making sure that it can go from just about where your chin is and below to almost reaching the sides of your face to the starts of your ears. So there also should be literally no gap between your forehead and the front of the shield unless there's like a cover on top of it. The reason for this is that since like we were saying before, that COVID-19 spreads mainly through droplets when someone coughs or sneezes. So droplets are affected by gravity. So like, when you cough some upwards, a droplet will travel upwards and then it will come downwards. So if you have a gap in between your shield, that will be a way for the virus to come through. Also, on top of this, it is very important that you be cleaning and disinfecting your face shields on a regular basis after use. The reason for this is, like I said before, these act as an extra layer. So if someone coughs on you, you're gonna have like their droplets on your face shield, right? You can't just leave that on there because COVID-19 can survive up to 9 hours on your skin and on other objects and still be alive. So you can't just like leave that hanging around. It is very important to like be washing this on a regular basis and every time after use. So should you wear safety glasses or goggles for coronavirus protection? So here we'll be talking more about like why. So your eyes contain a similar mucus lining as the nose and the mouth, which is an entry point for the virus. So the main point that I want to clarify here is while you can get coronavirus from your eyes, it isn't the it isn't the prime way that they'll become infecting you. So that's why it isn't like universally recommended to, but it does add another layer of protection. So it is obviously if you really want to have a complete like the best you can get, you should be wearing these. So the difference between safety glasses and goggles, there isn't that big of a difference when you're thinking about the whole essence of why you want to be wearing these. The whole point behind wearing safety glasses and goggles is more of not as much as droplets getting into your eyes as much as you don't want to be touching your eyes. So since your hands are kind of literally the most common thing that's going to be coming in contact with any sort of coronavirus, because like I said before, it can stay on an object for up to 9 hours, the chances of you touching coronavirus infected things are very high. So if you touch your eyes, that's an entry point for the coronavirus can infect you through an entry point through the coronavirus can infect you through. So that obviously isn't a good thing. But if you're wearing safety glasses or goggles, well, then you won't be touching your eyes as much. Also, one thing I do want to point out is that prescription eyewear, like my glasses, are not the same as safety glasses and goggles in this criteria or this in this scenario. This is because, like I said before, flashback to the face shield, we want it to go around to where the starting of our ears is and as far back as possible. And on top of that, we want it to go up and down. So the main point is we want it to have like a very clear like covering of our eyes, which prescription glasses, if you can see me, do not have that side. It's only on the front and it's not really made for this, right? Also on top of this, make sure that you're cleaning and disinfecting safety glasses and goggles just like you would with face shields. So the most effective way and easiest way that you can reduce COVID-19 is just by wearing masks. As you can see over here, we have a small little thing, a small little fact, if you will. So, well, I mean, it is a fact, but so less than half of Americans can confidently say that they always wear a mask in public when they exit their house or just walking around. That being said, if we can get everyone to wear a mask, we can save up to 100,000 lives just in the next year. So meeting outdoors does not guarantee protection. Masks do not guarantee protection. Meeting in small groups does not guarantee protection. Every one of these ways is a layer of protection, but that it makes it so that's less likely to spread the virus. But these aren't a cure-all. So remember that when we're going through this.
Now, student responsibilities, things that everyone should do for themselves. If you feel sick or if you know that you're sick, stay home. Also, remember to keep at least 6 feet between you and everyone else. Remember your own mask and safety glasses and to wash or sanitize your hands frequently. This is like steps to hand sanitize. Remember that your hand sanitizer should be 60% alcohol or more. Remember to hand sanitize for at least 20 seconds, or just make sure that you cover the entire surface area of your hands. And for hand washing, again, you want to wash for 20 seconds or as long as it takes to sing the ABCs or happy birthday. You really just want to make sure that you kill all the virus or germs on your hands.
Quick pop quiz. How many seconds are you supposed to be washing your hands for? Answer in the chat. And don't cheat. I already know you guys are scanning the thing. Don't cheat. Ooh. These are some good guesses.
Yep.
Correct. You guys got it correct. I'm so proud of you. Anyways, we're going on to the next slide. So team responsibilities. So things that we talked more about what you should be doing individually and team. Now we're going to be talking more of like what you guys should be doing as a team. So to add on to this, our team, we have a saying where there isn't only one safety captain, everyone's in charge of safety or everyone's a safety captain. And the main thing that we want to address with this is that it isn't only your individual responsibility to take care of yourself. It also needs your individual responsibility is to be aware of others. This can be through social distancing and making sure that you are actively aware of how close other people are to each other. So, like I said before, be aware of the number of people on site. Typically, the limit should be around 25. But obviously, this will differ depending on where you're going to be working on. If you can't practice good social distancing, you're going to have to cut down on the number of people that are coming to these meetings. Also, take attendance. It's really important due to contact tracing. The reason for this, contact tracing basically means if someone does catch coronavirus on your on-site team or however it gets onto your on-site team, someone is infected with coronavirus, right? You need to be able to have a very good idea of who that person came in contact with, and you need to be able to trace who else they came in contact with, and you need to notify all of them as soon as possible so that they can go into quarantine or isolation depending on whether or not they have the virus. You also need to always be practicing good sanitization. You can do this through having the proper cleaning supplies like hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes, paper towels, basic things like that. Just always sanitize. You can't be overly cautious when it comes to a virus. Just better be safe than sorry.
This is things you should consider when you're meeting, like where you should meet. So of course, meeting virtually is the best because that is the only guarantee that you're not spreading COVID. But if you do have to work in person, make sure that try to work somewhere outside because you have the best ventilation there. If you can't work outside, well, try for a well-ventilated room, somewhere where you can open doors and windows, and make sure that wherever you're working that it's big enough so you can have enough room to practice social distancing.
So preparing for a meeting. So what are some things that you're going to need to take care of before you come to a meeting? First of all, you're going to have an agenda. The main reason for an agenda isn't as much as no. So the main reason from having an agenda is staying on track, right? The point of staying on track is that when you're meeting someone in person on these on-site meetings, you're going to want to talk to them. You haven't seen Jake in a while, you haven't seen Bridget in a while. You're going to want to talk to them. I get it. I want to talk to everyone. I'm a very sociable person. I like talking, but we can't ignore social distancing, and we don't want to accidentally forget about that when we are talking to Jake or when we are talking to Bridget. So we need to have an agenda. So we're always staying on topic. Plus, then we'll also get our goals done, and it'll just keep us on track when we want to complete something. Have a designated work area. So the whole point behind of this is that, as you can see over here, we're working in the commons, which is basically a very large area. It's just a big area, but we don't want to clean this entire area every single day. So having a designated work area lets us be able to work on what's going on. Like, it allows us to understand where we're going to be working and what we're going to be doing in each teams. And then we also need to be always sanitizing the equipment that's being used. I think Sarah can take over what our team does.
Yeah. So our MTR team, they all work remotely. So that is our business team, our chairman's team, and our outreach. Our programmers can also work remotely because they can upload code to the robot remotely. And if they want to test the robot, they just connect to someone who's on site and just talk to them in order to work with the robot.
So during the oh, sorry, my bad.
No, it's fine. So these are things we should be doing during the meeting. So whenever, so when people get to where we're working, we have them first take some hand sanitizer, make sure that they're clean. We take attendance, which is back to contact tracing. We, as Lucas said, we work in pods and social distance. Remember to wear masks and safety goggles. We also don't share tools unless you absolutely have to. And if you do need to share the tools, then we just sanitize them before we pass them over.
Yes, one thing I'd like to add is when you're working in pods, the main idea behind the pods is that you're working with someone, but you're not working with everyone. So let's say someone in your pod catches coronavirus. Only those people in that pod will necessarily be at the risk. Everyone else obviously might have come in contact with them, which you'll have to take into consideration. But for the most part, they won't because they aren't in that part of that pod.
And this is what the other half of our team does. So our mechanical sub team, because they're working on the robot, they of course wear masks and their safety glasses. They also try to practice social distancing, and they frequently just take breaks to clean, sanitize themselves and their tools, whatever they're working with. Our control sub-team, they have the option to work remotely, but if they do want to work on the robot, they either communicate with the mechanical team to work on it, or they just switch out. So like the mechanical team does something else for a while and the control team comes in and do what they need to do.
So after the meeting, so once the meeting is done and the people who are left still there, usually we're more of talking about mentors here, but if some students are present after the meeting, then they will also be helping out with this. So you need to clean up your work area. So this kind of ties back to what we were saying with the designated work area. If you're keeping track, you need to keep track of where everyone is touching, and then you need to sanitize everything that they came in contact with. Sanitize all equipment, sanitize all work surfaces, and sanitize anything that they possibly could have come in contact with. You can't overly sanitize, so just be better safe than sorry. Also check stock for safety supplies. Just make sure that you have the right things that you're going to need for the next meeting in order to properly sanitize that meeting as well.
These are things you should make sure that you're doing when you're cleaning your tools and equipment. So remember, when you're cleaning your tools, make sure that your disinfectant is about 70% alcohol, avoid bleach, and remember that electronical devices and just water or disinfectant don't work well together. So be careful with that and make sure that you don't short out your electronics. Of course, remember to follow the instructions on your labels, like remember what safety equipment you have to wear in order to use your disinfectant and things like that.
Okay, so how do you what do you do when someone tests positive for coronavirus? You need to test, trace, and isolate. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, it means test means obviously you need to get tested for coronavirus. If you test positive, however, you need to trace. This ties back to the attendance thing. I know I bring this up a lot, but it's very important for contact tracing. You need to come and contact everyone that person who tested positive for coronavirus came in contact with, and whoever they spent in the last 2 weeks, and if they spent more than 15 minutes with within a 6 foot distance. So you need to tell everyone that those people came in contact with. Once you tell them, you need to put that person who did test positive into isolation for the recommended time, which is 2 weeks. So you see, isolate. What's the difference between isolate and quarantine? So isolation is for people who have tested positive for coronavirus. They are people who are definitely sick. But quarantine is for more people who have the possibility of being sick. It's more of a gray area between the two. So quarantine is if you come in contact with someone, if you haven't really tested positive, but you might be developing symptoms or things like that. That's more of just, it's not really as definite of a thing as isolation.
And it is really important to keep yourself mentally healthy during the pandemic. And these are some things you should do to do that. So, of course, you want to be physically safe to keep yourself from getting corona, but you also want to be mentally healthy. And to do that, you want to stay connected, communicate frequently with your friends and family. If you have any troubles or worries, just go to them about that. And you also want to take care of your body, so exercise, eat well, do all that. And you want to keep your current lifestyle, your pandemic lifestyle, as close as it can to a non-pandemic lifestyle. Like if you wake up during a certain time, just keep on doing that. You don't want to drastically change your lifestyle. Back to Luca.
Yeah, so I have something to add on what Sarah was saying. So there's a lot of stigma around quarantine and being at home now. A lot, you look on social media and you see a lot of people being like, "Oh, you want to be fit? Well, now there's time. Work with this free workout app." Or like, companies are using this as a way to set a stigma around quarantine that you need to always be productive. You always need to be doing something. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. What I have to say about that is more of just ignore them. What you do with your time is your own business and it's none of theirs. That being said, you can't neglect what you are. You can't neglect being healthy. So you need to take care of yourself, but do it in a fashion that does not make you uncomfortable with what is going on, and make sure that you are not overworking yourself. Prioritize yourself and your well-being over everything else. You do come first. That being said, if you just need to chill out and just listen to music every now and then, by all means do that. It will help. So how can you support others in mental health? This is an answer question for the chat. So just name some things out. What can you do? What have you done to support other people as in mental health? And just let us know. We'll give you a couple minutes to write something down. Yeah. Some answers are coming in. Yeah, so this is really good. These answers are coming together. So the main thing that we want to address with this is that you're staying very connected with other people. Plus, so when something does come up, actually, let me start over. So one key fact that I like to keep in my pocket at all times is that 1 in 4 teens have some sort of anxiety or depressive disorder, meaning this is extremely common with our generation for someone to have some sort of mental illness or have a disruption in their mental health. So when we are talking about mental health, like anxiety or depression, I think we can all agree that there are some key signs that are coming out. For example, depression, people tend to lose interest in things that they were usually very interested in. They just tend to lack motivation to do anything. They're just constantly down, not really being that positive about things. Obviously, it's depression, so they wouldn't be that positive. But like, we can agree that there's signs about this, right? And I'm pretty sure many of you guys have already heard about many of these signs that do come up. Just keep an eye out. If someone is acting irregular, if they're acting more anxious, if they're acting more stressed out, if they're acting a little bit more down, lack of interest, things like that, just reach out to them. It's not that hard. Just maybe send them a quick text. Yo, you want to play Among Us with me? Or like something like that. Just make sure that you're constantly keeping in contact with those people and making sure that they don't feel left out because especially in this time, it is very easily to be singled out and be left feel that you're very alone when in reality you aren't. So just like you guys are all saying, play video games with them, talk to people online. It's so easy to just talk to someone and make sure that they feel supported.
Of course, there are a lot of businesses that are working and researching to find a cure. So when the COVID vaccine comes out, will you get it? And this will be a poll.
Yeah, so if you're watching the news recently, you can see how there's a bunch of people. So I think Russia doesn't really test their vaccines while we are trying to. And there's just a bunch of like conflicting interests on when we're supposed to release a vaccine and how safe it's supposed to be. So I guess that's more of what we're trying to address in this, just get an idea of who would be interested in trying to get that vaccine. So those are the results, as you can see there. These polls are so cool. I love them. But yeah, so moving on to the next thing. So we talked about how you need to be talking with your school administration at the beginning. So this kind of ties into that. So I mentioned how with my team, and we kind of go to the CDC and we rely also on the MDH to kind of get an idea of what's recommended for health and how we can stay healthy. Here are some other resources that you can be going to. So if you go to firstuppermidwest.org, you can easily see a bunch of ideas to get an idea for your mitigation plan. Obviously, don't just copy it because you will have different circumstances that for each of your teams. So don't just copy it. Make sure that's very like specific thing just for your team because your team will come in with different hazards and different things that will be coming in there that they'll be coming in contact with. But these are just some places that you can get ideas from. That being said, this is the end of our presentation. So we will now be taking questions and discussions. So anything that you don't think we discussed well or anything that you aren't quite certain of, now's your time to ask. I'm not quite certain how you're going to ask. I may think that you can like
Yeah,
just unmute.
put it in the chat and we'll read it.
Yeah, just put it in the chat or unmute your mic. Can they unmute their mics or is that a thing that they can't do?
Yep, they should be able to.
Okay. So you can talk to us or you can just go in the chat and say something like that.
Mm.
I have a question for you guys. What was the most surprising thing that you guys learned? Your presentation is so thorough. I'm so impressed by it. I'm just curious, what's the most surprising thing that you learned?
By far the 10-meter thing, how
Mm.
droplets can go up to 10 meters. It was especially surprising. I didn't think that someone could sneeze that far, but it was very surprising. Because 10 meters, that's like 30 feet. That's a
Yeah.
wicked amount of time. Obviously, it'd be like less effective, and the chances of you catching coronavirus at that distance are very low, but it's possible. And that just blew my mind that it was possible like that.
Mhm.
For me, it was the gator mask and the like bandanas because I just
Mhm.
thought you kind of just needed a covering for your face.
Sarah, I thought the same thing. I was in the grocery store this morning and I saw people with the neck gaiter ones.
Yeah.
And now I'm like a little nervous now about
Yeah.
those people with those ones. I didn't realize those were not as effective.
Another thing, it was very surprising. Like, I never thought about it in the way that you should be like avoiding touching your mask. Because if you think about it, it does act as like a filter or like a barrier. So everything that had the possibility of touching you is now on your mask. Like
Mhm.
that someone sneezed in your general direction or something like that. Now it's on your mask. So obviously you shouldn't be touching your mask, but it just never really clicked with me that you shouldn't be touching your mask. It was just very surprising to me when that was brought up. But if any of you guys have questions, feel to let us know. Sorry, were you going to say
I
something?
was gonna just say, so when you meet with your teams, do you have to kind of cover some of these things as reminders to the team? I wonder if that's part of
So
the
our team
process.
personally, we are very safe. We had like another safety presentation, but with our team, we have like these, I guess these things like once a week. So when the season starts, we kind of every single team lead has to come up with like one thing that they need to present on. Especially in this time, we're kind of trying to go over at least something every week or trying to like make sure that there's a special awareness about everything that's going on when we're having these on-site meetings and things like that so that people aren't just kind of neglecting social distancing and wearing a mask and things like that.
Mhm.
So we have hand sanitizer. We need to put that on in order to get in. And we have a special person that's keeping track of all attendance. In somewhere in the slides, I think you saw that we had a sign up genius, so we know who's coming in, we know who's going out. And then we also have a mentor that's keeping track of attendance of the people who actually do come in and who come out.
Mhm.
So we are trying our best to like make sure that we're following with the procedures and the recommended things for everything. And we're also trying to make sure that everyone is constantly aware of that the case that we're like in a pandemic right now and it is very serious.
Mhm. I liked what you said about contact tracing, to kind of saying like, I know I reiterate the attendee sheet or what it might be, but it's so important. That was something interesting
Yeah,
too that you shared.
it's so
Really liked
important because like if you think about it, those people do come in contact with other people. So it is very important in order to limit the spread of COVID-19, you need to thoroughly find out who those people came in contact with and notify those people in order so that they can quarantine
Mhm.
because there's no point in just trying to save that one person because they already caught the coronavirus. We need to prevent other people from catching the coronavirus. And that's just very important.
Good.
So I'm going to jump in here real quick. For those who don't know me, I'm John Strauss. I'm with Team 2177. I'm also part of First in the Upper Midwest. I've been running that page on the First Upper Midwest website for the COVID information, which includes linking out to 4 different teams' COVID plans. If any teams out there have COVID plans that they'd like to share, please email them to me. My email is in the chat there. I'd like to include as many possible plans as possible on the website, just so we can get as much variety out there. Since every team's different, having rural teams and urban teams and suburban teams, small teams, big teams, teams with lots of resources, teams with very few resources, all of the different varieties can really help as many people as possible.
Someone asked in the chat, they were asking about, so how should they go about the building when the season starts? So obviously try and maintain social distancing, but I can recognize that it would be very difficult when you're building on a robot because everyone will be touching and everyone will need to like be in the same vicinity. Try your very best to have social distance,
Mhm.
but other than that, you can go back to what we were talking about, the pods. Make sure that you're working with pods and that you're like switching out. If someone needs to work on the robot, then your pod will take a break, and that the pod that needs to go work on the robot, let's say control or something else like that, will come back in and they can start working on the robot. So just try and stay socially distanced, but it makes sense that like you can't be like you should be it makes sense that you're going to be coming in contact with other people and you'll be breaking social distancing. Obviously, you'll need to be wearing masks all the time. That's very important. But I kind of assumed that you guys would already be keeping that in mind, seeing that we're in a pandemic,
Mm.
I guess.
Also, further on that, if anyone can like work without being on the robot, then just have them either stay at home or like just keep them away from the group. Like our programmers, if they are at the meeting, then they're just kind of at their own separate table, just really far from everyone who's working on the robot because they really don't need to have contact with the robot. Otherwise, they're just at home and they just upload the code to the robot directly.
Yeah, because our programming, I don't think anyone from programming even comes to on-site. They're all virtual
Yeah.
and they all send it to the team through they have like some way to send their
Yeah.
code to the team. I'm not quite certain what that way is, but I think they like just they have some way sending. Maybe they mirror their computers or something like that. But yeah, so all programming and all control people for the most part stay in virtual, but others only MTR, not even MTR,
No. Only
safety factor.
mechanical mostly.
What?
It's mostly just mechanical, maybe a few control numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So we can also activate the robot online. So I think someone else, Steve, sent a more in-depth thing about how it works in the chat, but we can operate the robot online. I think they like we give we kind of send out, I guess, the link or whatever. No, there's a VPN set up to
Oh,
allow driver station use from home. So they have a setup that allows the driver station to be used from their own personal computers. So they don't need to actually be on site to test out the code that they have. Granted, though, when they are testing code out, mechanical won't be able to work on it. So if you guys also, if anyone else has questions, feel free to like say in the chat or just turn on your mic and tell us there. We'll try our best to actually answer them. So if that's all, and I'm not seeing any other questions. Oh, so,
oh, you, no problem, Celeste.
yeah, we got you. No problem. But if no one has any questions, that is the end of our presentation. Over here, we have our social media and everything like that. But that is the end of our presentation. So I think that brings our meeting